Hi, welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. First, have you downloaded your free copy of our children's illustrated biography of African legends yet? Please do so if you haven't. Don't forget that we owe our children a responsibility to expose them to our history. Also, please help us to continue bringing you videos like this one by supporting us through Patreon or by buying me coffee. Please subscribe, share and like our videos. What is the African Continental Free Trade Area? Well, the African Continental Free Trade Area, or AfCFTA, is an ambitious trade agreement to form the world's largest free trade area by connecting 1.3 billion people across 54 African countries. The agreement aims to create a single market for goods and services in order to advance the economic integration of Africa. As a Pan-Africanist, I believe that AfCFTA is long overdue. If properly implemented, it can be a major step towards reducing poverty on the continent. However, the opportunities offered by the opening up of borders can also impact the most economically vulnerable masses on the continent negatively if proper care is not taken. I'll not dwell on the opportunities offered by the scheme because they've been very loudly publicized everywhere. It's a good scheme, it's a laudable scheme. But I want to focus here instead on the ways in which it can negatively impact the lives of the poorest people on the continent if proper attention is not paid to the peculiar ways in which the opening up of borders can affect small-scale entrepreneurs. Africa is a continent that does not only have 33 out of the 47 least developed countries, but it is also the continent with the greatest level of income disparity than any other continent where free trade areas have been introduced, like ASEAN in Asia and CARICOM in the Caribbean. Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt are responsible for about 50% of the continent's GDP. That's how dispersed it is. Now, this disparity should make us more than slightly wary about the expected outcomes of AfCFTA, especially now with even Ethiopia, which has the most dynamic capitalist economy, is preoccupied with battling itself. First, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. As such, in order for AfCFTA to achieve the desired level of economic advancement for Africa, it is imperative for us to be mindful of the pitfalls which have attended globalization, which, like AfCFTA, is dependent on a neoliberal model of rapid and aggressive liberalization. I believe that we need to problematize AfCFTA's sequencing, which favors rapid tariff liberalization. Because for how many countries in Africa are really ready for this? How will it affect women and other marginalized groups? When tariffs are removed, how will it impact the revenue of the countries and their ability to provide social services that women and other vulnerable groups depend on? On a continent which is plagued by economic inequalities like Africa, we should expect that AfCFTA will affect economically vulnerable groups in unique ways. As it is, Small farmers and traders have very little access to and control of economic resources. They have very little participation in decision making. As globalization demonstrates, participation in some industries will shrink due to trade liberalization. An example of this kind of problem that we might find played out more frequently is the scandalous KFC potato gate in Kenya, where KFC, a multinational, prefers to import potatoes from Egypt instead of sourcing them locally in Kenya, where they are selling their goods. What this means is that Egyptian potato growers and processors are currently able to explore a bigger market open up for them due to the opening up of borders on the continent. However, a nation like Kenya, where KFC has many branches and where potatoes are mostly grown by small scale farmers in the same industry, will continue to struggle. Potato farmers in Kenya are losing out to potato growers in Egypt. Small scale farmers in the same industry will continue to struggle to compete with importation of cheaper products from countries which are stronger in the sector. Again, after annex provisions on rules of origin, standards, and phytosanitary measures should therefore be scrutinized. Also, the nature of the annexed rules seems neither sufficiently flexible to improve market access for African products, nor are they robust enough to defend African producers against non-African products and enterprises. Such limitations are likely, to affect small entrepreneurs because of their limited productive capacities to integrate in the market. And we have seen how this has played out as a result of globalization. Again, when we look closely at other schemes similar to AfTA, like ASEAN and CARICOM, we will see that while in some instances employment increased in the unskilled sector, the ability of small traders and farmers to expand their businesses still face several barriers. Again, are the provisions in the AfTA agreement adequate to ensure the necessary policy space to support a wide range of domestic SMEs and other businesses that are operating under more constrained economic business environments? The capacities of SMEs and MSMEs need to be developed in order to compete against larger and relatively better financed enterprises from other countries. I don't mean to be pessimistic about AfTA. I'm completely committed to any process that would move us closer to the achievement of the Pan-African goal. But I believe that the lessons learned from globalization, if properly acknowledged, will help structure AfTA better. For instance, on a global level, trade liberalization has led to increased privatization of public goods and services. And the impact of this has been borne by the poorest in the world. So how will AfTA protect essential goods and essential services from privatization? It is doubtful whether or not the proposed 10% margin for sensitive products is sufficient to facilitate intra-African trade, especially for SMEs and MSMEs. To ensure that preferential tariff options are not restrictive for small-scale operators, a detailed analysis of their implications on small-scale operators under AfTA should be conducted at individual country levels. AfTA should also safeguard labor rights by including a framework which will reduce the abuse of workers' rights, which is prevalent in many countries on the continent. Legalized exploitation of workers through export processing zones, EPZs, must be avoided within the AfTA through the inclusion of a Pan-African workers' rights. To summarize, the effects of trade liberalization will be felt at the macro, meso, and micro levels because of the inherent differences in access to assets, human capital, labor markets, and labor earnings. At the macro level, it is hoped that gaps in market participation will narrow if sectors that expand through trade liberalization are more than the sectors that contract. At the meso level, public provision of social services might be undermined if the loss of government revenue through reduction in tariffs leads to cuts in these services. Thanks for watching. Please download your free copy of our children's books and support us through Patreon or by buying me coffee. Also, tell your friends about this channel. Thank you.